So, most important are our Vietnam vets that came home to a country that was divided, that treated us like crap. That's the truth. We were vilified. But God gave us a cross to bear. He needed men and women with broad shoulders to show the world how you never, ever treat your warriors again. And thus our slogan, never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. And that's who we are, and that's who we will always be until the last one lights the fuse. And so at this time, we're going to introduce our keynote speaker, and I'm just going to give you a little brief bio on her from my heart. I'm not going to read it out of your program. Heather French Henry. She's a daughter of a combat wounded Marine. She's a Miss America. She has family, her uncle, Vietnam homeless veteran. She became Miss America, and she was the only Miss America that took on veterans, homeless veterans, as her platform. And she almost ended homelessness for veterans. She's been an advocate for us always and forever. She's been a close friend to some of us. She loves everybody. I can go on and on, but I'm not going to. Heather, it's your mic.
Well, it is a pleasure to be here. I'm going to take this out so I can hold this closer to my mouth so we can hear. First off, what a beautiful day to be honoring our Vietnam veterans and our military families. Am I right? This is a wonderful day. And it is right that we're here having this ceremony. And a lot of people throughout time go, what do ceremonies do? What good does it do to honor, to build memorials? And I always lead off with President George Washington's, I'm going to paraphrase it, but the willingness of future generations to serve our country is directly dependent on how we honor those who have already served. Days like today matter. Memorials like this matter. They matter to those of us who are children of veterans. They matter to you veterans, but they matter to future generations who will become veterans. If we cannot teach our nation that we honor your sacrifice and service, what do they learn? Why will they serve? And today we live in a country where less than 0.5% sign up to serve our nation. We have recruiting numbers that are below average. So ceremonies like today help to rebuild the fabric of our nation. These are the stitches that keep the patchwork together. And each and every one of you here today, each and every one on the dais, we have an important duty as members and citizens of this country, the greatest country on the globe, the country that fights for democracy and for freedom, even when our citizens don't appreciate that we are fighting for democracy and freedom, and they don't understand the price of freedom. When we think about the over 58,000 men and women, because there are 8 women on the wall, and I appreciate you bringing them up, we have far too long forgotten their stories. That's why when you go to Vietnam memorials, and especially the one in DC where you can touch the names, you're almost touching their life, you're touching their story, you get a rubbing of their name on the wall. And my dad was wounded December 27th, 1967 in Operation Badger Tooth. They went in on Christmas Day, and 2 days later they were ambushed. He was wounded, and 32 of his men died. They're all on panel 32E on on the Vietnam Memorial Wall. And it was the first time that he got a chance to touch their names. And of course, seeing his own reflection in that wall meant he was seeing them and he in them. And I'll just never forget that moment of grief, but that moment of healing. And then it was years later that he actually discovered that one of his best friends, who went on to serve after Operation Badger Tooth, that on February 28th, 1968, his very best friend, the Marine Corps Charlie Smith, actually died in the battle. And my dad went through 30 years of difficult transition, and one might say 30 years of hell, spiritually, emotionally, physically, trying to come home from Vietnam. Most of my adolescent childhood years was hearing him wake up in the middle of the night with night terrors, and him not knowing where he was when he woke up in the morning. Also of him, through the VA's transition, although they're great today, being numbed with medication for post-traumatic stress disorder and substance abuse. So years later, I get a chance to go back to the wall and look up his best friend's name. And I said, Dad, I'm just going to see if Charlie Smith is on the wall. And Dad just said, he goes, honey, I'm not sure I want to know what happened to Charlie. I'm just not ready. And I said, Dad, you're ready. You are Mr. America in my eyes, and you need to know. So I go to the book, and I look up. Of course, it's in alphabetical order in the books, on chronological order on the wall. And of course, there's a lot of Charlie Smiths. That's a pretty common name, right? But there was only one from Louisville, Kentucky, Charlie Allen Smith. He is on panel 41E on the wall. And when I called my dad, it was another moment of grief, but another moment of healing. And then fast forward a couple years after that, I got a chance to meet Charlie's sister, and now I am best friends with his son, Charlie Smith Jr., who never got to meet his dad. When we talk about coming full circle and paying it forward and making sure that the memories of those who served, just like who were sitting in the audience, and the memories of those who fail, it is our responsibility to carry on that legacy, which is why, not just as Miss America, but as the daughter of a veteran, I am so proud to continue to stand alongside those who are still fighting the fight, carrying that torch, to be able to carry on that legacy of honoring our military veterans and their families. And I do say families, like Judy, those who pay that ultimate sacrifice, who carry on that grief for a lifetime. But we also not only need to honor, but we need to remember the stories, the individual stories. Each one of you today who are out there, who have served, no matter what generation you've served in, peacetime, wartime, no matter how young or old, your story counts. 1,000 men or women can serve in the same battle, but you're each going to walk away with your own unique experience. I think about Ray over here, our 102-year-old World War II veteran, who, bless his heart, I just love it, came up, and as soon as he met me, he gave me a card to go to Amazon to buy his book. So, if you don't know, Ray has a book on Amazon called Against All Odds. Right? We need to remember, because every single one of your moments serving is worth remembering. And then educating. I love seeing the children out here singing. We have to be the educators for our future generations. We have to show them that it is okay to go up and shake a hand and say, welcome home. Thank you for your service. That we have to teach them that not only men serve, but women also serve. That your mothers, your aunts, your sisters, for generations have served this country. And we too will honor and remember their sacrifice and service. But we also, thank you, I appreciate that. And we also will teach them that when you place your hand over your heart to say the Pledge of Allegiance, this is to honor the men and women who have built this nation, who have fought for this nation, who have died for this nation, and who still, like George, right there in his wheelchair, are going to still sit there and keep beating on the doors to make sure that our veterans and their families are never forgotten again. That is what we need our future generations to do. So with that, I did bring with me, because again, I know Miss Americas are a little bit of urban legend. You never know if you're ever going to meet one. But I did want to bring with me something out of my vault, out of my closet, because it wasn't something, and it's Terry. It's funny, I've known Terry and Tommy and George and Rocky and several of them, and Patrick down here. We worked together on hepatitis C awareness for veterans, on high cholesterol, on diabetes, you name it, ending homelessness. I did a Hep C screening in the middle of Times Square with Terry Baker and Tommy and the crew. You talk about something that lit up the city. They'd never before seen anything like that. But we had a hard fight to fight before 9/11. Not everybody was on board. But you know, the silver lining after 9/11, no one questions now that our military is important. They understand. And every politician stands in line to say yes for our veterans. That is important. But during that year, I got a very special trophy, and it's in the form of a crown. And I wanted to bring it to you today because my dad, as a Marine, said only a Marine Corps daughter could have won in 2000 because they did a special crown. And it is gold and red, just like the Marine Corps colors. But I wanted to bring this. Thank you. It is pretty. But I rarely wore it during my year. And I keep it as a traveling sort of speaking item because every stone in this crown represents our military veterans and their families. And I was honored that in the millennium they made a special crown with the rubies. And I would say this crown represents the blood that was shed for our country. And to me, being able to highlight, and to still to this day, 23 years later, to be able to go to communities around the country and talk about what each one of us can effectively do to honor our military veterans and their families, it's important to me to tell that story. That from a small town girl in Augusta, Kentucky, town of 1,400 people, if you count the cats and the dogs, would grow up, the daughter of a disabled Vietnam veteran, niece of a homeless veteran, would become Miss America. But you know, God really knows what he's doing, right? So when we look back on our life, we go, wow, only he could make that happen, where you take this small town Kentucky gal, put her on the road with the crown, and see the difference that we are still making today, 23 years later. And in my crown box, I'd be remiss if I didn't show the Vietnam Service Medal that a gentleman has given me who served 5 tours in Iraq, or 5 tours in Vietnam, and then a lapel Purple Heart that a gentleman who served in Iraq gave me. To me, when I go to schools, when I go to groups, and I talk about the importance of what we each individually can do, I share those medals and I share those stories, because no matter what we do in our life, the common denominator should be that we all are here to serve those who have served us. And in closing, I want to read a poem. So when I was Commissioner of Veterans Affairs for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, which was a blessing to be able to do for 2 governors, I was in charge of our World War I commemoration. And although we have no World War I veterans left, we did have during my Miss America year, but there's a poem that was written that is just as striking and relative today as it was over 100 years ago. And I want to read it for you, and it's called In Flanders Field. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch. be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field. Each generation has thrown the torch to the next. So my question to you, you've got the torch. How are we going to make a difference, each one of us, in the future? So to close with a funny story, I was in Pontotoc, Mississippi not too long ago, and I was handing out high school diplomas to World War II veterans who did not get the chance to finish college. So if you know a World War II, Korea, or Vietnam veteran who needs a high school diploma, through your Department of Veterans Affairs or Department of Education, you can get an honorary high school diploma. So I actually was handing out these diplomas to World War II veterans, and this gentleman comes up to me, and he had overalls on, he had straw hanging out of his mouth. I was in Mississippi, for goodness sake, right? So I said, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that you're excited to get your high school diploma. He said, no, I've just always wanted to kiss a Miss America. So I figure that even that little bit can make a difference in showing that I honor and remember that sacrifice and service of that gentleman. So ladies and gentlemen, the torch is ours, and what we do with it is up to us. But it is important that we carry on this legacy every single day. So for all of you veterans out there, thank you for your service and sacrifice. For all of you children of veterans and spouses of veterans, thank you for continuing to remember and honor their legacy, because truly it does take all of us in order to provide that information for the future. So thank you all, and to Vietnam veterans, welcome home.